You've worked hard to become a better communicator, calm, patient, and mindful. You've learned how to listen, how to stay grounded, and how to keep your cool even when conversations get tense. But what happens when someone uses those same skills against you? When they twist your calm into weakness, your empathy into guilt, or your curiosity into a trap? It's an unsettling feeling, realizing that someone's figured out how to turn your strengths into pressure points. And it happens more often than you might think. That's what we're talking about today. How to protect yourself when someone starts using your own communication skills to control, confuse, or manipulate you. Because awareness isn't just about understanding others. It's about recognizing when someone is trying to use your awareness against you. In my recent videos, we talked about how to make people open up, how to keep them talking, and how to understand what they're really saying beneath the surface. But not everyone communicates in good faith. Some people learn those same techniques and twist them into tools of control. They don't want understanding, they want leverage. So let's talk about how to recognize it, and more importantly, how to stay centered when it happens. Because here's the truth, manipulation doesn't always sound harsh or obvious. Sometimes it sounds patient, kind, even mindful. It hides behind empathy, quiet tones, and careful listening. The same skills genuine communicators use to build trust. The difference isn't in the technique, it's in the intention. And once you learn to recognize that difference, you take your power back without losing your calm or your compassion. So let's look at a few signs that someone might be using your communication strengths against you and how to stay grounded when they do. The first is to recognize when mirroring becomes manipulation. Real communicators mirror to build connection. Manipulators mirror to build access. They'll reflect your tone, your pacing, even your exact phrasing. Not to understand you, but to get closer and disarm you. It feels familiar, safe, like you're finally being heard, but if the connection feels just a little too perfect, pay attention. That's often the first sign that someone's not relating to you. They're studying you. To stop it, don't match their energy back. Slow the rhythm, break the pattern. Say something grounded like, "That's interesting. What makes you say that?" It recenters the conversation and puts control back into your hands. But sometimes it's not about imitation, it's about inversion. Instead of matching your rhythm, they'll flip the entire emotional focus back on you. And that's where emotional redirection begins. The second red flag is to watch for emotional redirection. If you've ever brought up how you feel and suddenly found yourself apologizing, you've seen this one in action. You say, "I felt hurt by how that was handled." They then respond with, "Well, now you're making me feel attacked." That's emotional redirection. They take your empathy and use it as a shield to avoid accountability. When that happens, stay steady. You don't need to argue or match your emotion. You just need to hold your line. Try this. "I understand you have your feelings, but right now, I'm talking about mine." It acknowledges them without surrendering your truth. It keeps the focus where it belongs, on the actual issue. But not every manipulation feels defensive. Some are disguised as understanding, the kind that sounds supportive, but slowly takes your voice away. That's where false understanding comes in. The third red flag is to spot false understanding. This one can feel the most disorienting. It's when someone pretends to understand you, but uses that understanding to dismiss you. They'll say things like, "I completely get where you're coming from, but that's not what really happened." Or, "I know how you feel. You're overthinking it." That's not empathy. It's control wrapped in validation. It sounds supportive, but it subtly replaces your perspective with theirs. Here's how to diffuse it. Try saying, "That's one way to see it. Here's what I actually meant." Simple, steady, clear. Calm doesn't mean weak, and empathy doesn't mean naive. You don't defend, you don't explain, you just realign the conversation with the reality. Around here, we don't just talk about communication, we train for it. If that message resonates, you're exactly where you need to be. And while that kind of disguised empathy can be confusing, there's one tactic that's even harder to spot because it looks exactly like mindfulness. It's called weaponized calm. This is our fourth red flag. Some people know that tone and composure carry power, so they use calmness to gain control. They act serene, measured, and perfectly in control, especially when you start expressing genuine emotion. And then they use your feelings against you. They'll say things like, "See, this is exactly what I mean. You're overreacting." Sound familiar? That's not emotional maturity. It's emotional manipulation. When that happens, don't fight for composure. Fight for clarity. You can say, "I'm calm enough to finish the conversation, but I'm also allowed to care about this." That statement resets the balance. You keep your dignity and your humanity. And to really see how these patterns show up in everyday life, let me share a quick story. It's subtle, but once you hear it, you'll recognize this behavior anywhere. And this is our fifth red flag. A few years ago, I was at dinner with two friends who had very different communication styles. One was expressive and open, the other calm, calculated, and incredibly observant. Halfway through the night, the expressive friend started opening up about a conflict at work. The other listened quietly, too quietly. Every time the first friend showed emotion, the other tilted their head, repeated a word back, and said, "I completely understand." But the tone didn't match the words. It was slow, almost rehearsed, like watching someone imitate empathy instead of feeling it. By the end of the dinner, my friend who opened up felt exposed, not understood. And that's what manipulators do when they mimic connection. They make you feel seen, but not safe. The next day, that same friend told me, "I wish I'd noticed sooner that they were using my calmness against me." That one sentence said everything. When you start recognizing these patterns, emotional mirroring, redirection, false understanding, and weaponized calm, you stop taking the bait. You realize that mindfulness without boundaries can become vulnerability, and empathy, when misused, can turn into exhaustion. But once you see the game, it stops working on you. Because manipulation only succeeds when you're unaware it's happening. And now you're aware. But awareness opens another door, one that's even more powerful. Because once you can see manipulation clearly, the next challenge is knowing what's true. Truth isn't just about honesty, it's about alignment. It's when words, tone, and intent all match. And when they don't, that's where most communication breaks down. That's what I'll be exploring in an upcoming video, how to determine what truth is in communication. Because when you understand how to recognize truth, not just in others, but in yourself, you'll never be easily manipulated again. Until then, if you want to strengthen your calm and protect your peace around difficult personality types, check out this video next. That'll give you the tools to keep your clarity and composure on how to handle difficult people without losing your cool, no matter who you're dealing with. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep your conversations mindful. I'll see you in the next video.